I was sort of reviewing this quickly earlier when I was thinking about it. And I think it's so interesting when we start to think about energy, because so many people want to change their bodies or their health. And normally they start off by taking some sort of action that involves the output of energy. And as you know, the conversations that we've had, some people aren't in the state to necessarily start expressing that energy. The first port of call that I felt that's really relevant to a lot of us is how you nurture more energy. So your rest and recuperation. And of course, drinking water and clearing out toxins so that you alleviate the load on the body. It's okay when you're 20, when you're 30, but as toxins and things start to take their hold on the body, it's really, really important to clear those out.
Do you think that toxins take a hold on the body as you get older?
I think it's difficult to say, isn't it? Because I think it's an accumulation of toxins that are not removed and the damage that having toxins hang about in your body does. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's permanent damage. Obviously, because of epigenetics, we can change all that. We can reverse all that. If you're not getting cellular hydration, then really you're not getting true hydration. So it's really, really important, in my experience, to really make sure that you're clearing those toxins out.
And you talked about epigenetics then. I've got an understanding of it from a mindset and a thoughts and, ability to switch on and off your DNA. Do you have a wider understanding of it?
It's been a long-standing belief of mine that, when people tell you that you're dealt a set of cards, I've never bought into that. And I believe it's all the drug industry that teaches you that you were set this criteria or this pattern of your genetics, and that was it. You was a hostage to whatever was going to happen. And I think it breeds a lot of fear into what people believe is coming up for them. Really, we have a lot more control over what goes on in and to our bodies. It is relatively new. But again, a lot of people stand to keep their control if they don't allow information like this out. I know I'm coming from it from a sort of conspiracy type thing, but until there's more proof of these things, I think there's going to be people that are going to be shunning it for quite a while,
I struggle a lot with 3 to 4 p.m. energy. I know some of that is due to my physical condition, but I could be busy all day and I'm fine. And then some days I can be busy all day and I need to sleep at 3 o'clock.
Well, there's many things that could trigger that. I mean, you could be sensitive to certain foods that have accumulated to stress during your day, and your system's just kind of kaput dealing with those. So I would say probably the first port of call is to start keeping a diary and see if you can pinpoint some of the things that might knacker you. It could be a simple thing that, for instance, you're allergic to milk. You kind of got over it the night before in a sense, or your body settled down, and then you start your day and you get this accumulation. But it could be a wider picture. It could be your hormones that you're struggling to make cortisol, the stress hormone. So at the end of the day, you literally haven't got much left to mitigate the effects of stress. But some of these things are just kind of a stab in the dark unless you're doing lab testing to find out what your hormone balance is like.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
But keep a diary and just see if you can pinpoint some of the things that might be triggering it. Just keep that diary and just see if you can pinpoint. It could be so many things.
Is there anything that you could suggest about sleep hygiene?
I'd say the best thing you can do is ground yourself while you sleep, so you can reduce that inflammation and get a better sleep through grounding yourself. If any of you go on YouTube and watch, I think it's called the Grounding film, the guys that were testing that out had miraculous recoveries from all sorts of illnesses. So check that out.
What is grounding for people that don't know?
This is just a grounding mat I keep under my feet while I'm on the laptop. But you're getting the positive ions from the earth, because we're meant to be grounded. We're meant to walk on the earth. and you're getting a swapping, if you want, of energy from the earth. So get outside, get your feet on the bare grass or soil, ground yourself as much as possible, because I believe a lot of this exhaustion that we're getting is because we're not grounding ourselves and we're constantly bombarded by EMFs, electromagnetic fields from our Wi-Fi's and our routers, phones, the cell towers. Often enough, what happens is they're exciting our cells, because obviously our body's electrical, our cells work on an electrical signal. So these EMFs can stress us out. And I'm not surprised that so many of us are feeling exhausted. And we all know, if we've seen the buzz about 5G, you know, some people won't necessarily buy into this, but these are energy frequencies going through our air and affecting us. So I think grounding during the night and getting your Wi-Fi turned off are two really, really important things. Leave your phone away from your bed. They're really, really important for getting restorative sleep.
And you talked about your glasses, and that
yeah.
relates to sleep as well, I think, doesn't it?
I got these called Swannies because I needed to experiment with my own sleep, because the years of eating lots of food, like up to 20 eggs a day, the training thing, when I was going through the bodybuilding thing, I stressed my gut out so much. And I caused digestive issues, which meant that I couldn't produce adequate amounts of melatonin, because 75% of it's made in your gut. So I interfered with my melatonin production, which affected my sleep, which meant it had all sorts of terrible effects, you know, hormones. I couldn't build muscle because my testosterone was so low. I couldn't digest the proteins properly. I was getting really bad gas and problems like that. So for me, the gut is really, really important, our digestion, you know, and the stress that we place upon it.
And the glasses come in where?
These are from a company called Swannies. What this does is blocks out a certain frequency of blue light. And most of our bulbs emit a blue light, and the blue light affects your hypothalamus, which is part of the brain that is involved with your circadian rhythms. So when you're getting blue light through your eyes, your body is interpreting that as daylight, and it's not time to sleep yet. So that's why I'm in quite low levels of light here with these on. I'm a big believer in the salt crystal lamps. I like having those about, yeah. And what they're doing is naturally blocking the blue light out. So what we're talking about with all these elements is often, like we've had conversations, when we start to explore some of these things, they're jigsaw puzzles that don't really fit together. But as we start to look, for instance, at individual cases, if we take me, for instance, you know, trying to train in the gym, trying to put on muscle, but I was catabolic and I couldn't do so. So for me, exercise was making things worse. And for many people that have got digestive issues and they're not sleeping well, they need to do forms of more restorative exercise, such as Pilates or yoga, Qigong, so that you kind of Paul Check, guy that I really admire in the fitness side of things, he calls it working in rather than working out. And he talks a lot about the gut, parasites, and the energy we put out and the energy we pull back to us. I'm a big believer in this kind of balance, as I call it, input and output. Exercise is fantastic, of course, it makes us feel great and all the rest of it, but there are so many people that I've seen since 2006 when I started as a personal trainer, so many people just using it. It was like the answer to everything. And I know I've come away from these glasses and sleep, but it's all part of the same thing.
During the day, I don't tend to snack whilst I'm working, so I wait till the lunchtime to kind of have a break. So I keep having tea throughout the morning and between the lunchtime and when I go home, just to keep me up, like tea with milk, kind of a mix of food and drink in a way, but I doubt it counts as a hydration. I don't know, I might be wrong because I'm not really sure.
Do you not like water?
I'm usually quite cold when I sit in the office, and it's either windows are open or air conditioning is on, and I'm generally quite a big fan of 22 degrees. So I do find it's quite difficult to drink water because it's cold outside, and well, not outside, but in the office, and also drinking the water on top of it is like, oh.
Such a problem being in these environments with this fake air and fake temperatures. I'm not surprised you need warming up. But I wouldn't call teas, unless you're doing herbal teas, I wouldn't call a tea hydration. I know a lot of people have talked about not actually liking drinking water. And I'm not surprised, because on a very subtle level, most people are picking up the odours of chlorine and fluoride, that dry metallic taste. And if you're having a tea, you don't notice that. So I'd do yourself a favour and get the water filter that Bridget uses. Exactly.
So how would you warm up filtered water then?
Unless you can take your own little kettle in. I mean, the kettle I have is a very compact glass kettle. And because I'm using filtered water in it, it doesn't get any limescale in it. And I know the limescale can be caused by having minerals in the water as well as toxins, because my distiller, the gunk that's in the bottom of that, once I've distilled 4 litres of water, is horrible. I mean, it's like the liquid that's left in the bottom is brown and It stinks, as well as the chlorine, fluoride, and all sorts of agricultural chemicals in it. The basis for me, the start of it, is to start drinking good water. I hasten to say it's difficult to start measuring things unless you're actually testing your water. But the lower spectrum, you've got plastic bottled water and tap water. And then for me, hydration is a journey. It's about learning what the taste of the water is like and how it makes you feel. I mean, that water filter you've got, I use that for like 10, 12 years and it feels perfect. But now I've started to experiment with a distiller, taking everything out and then remineralizing it and then structuring the water and trying different things.
There's so much information out there, isn't there, that people get very, very confused by, and I was certainly really confused by it till I started doing that. And I think a lot of people don't have that knowledge, nutrition and exercise, and whether people have the knowledge or not.
I think they do. I think a lot of the knowledge out there is really good, but how does it apply to us as individuals?
So I think that's what I mean. So you could read something one day and then read something that was different the next day. So you end up thinking, well, is it worth doing anything, or what shall I do? And I guess sometimes maybe it's just about starting and then getting that self-knowledge maybe.
You could give someone a low-carb diet, and at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, their body goes into sort of starvation mode through lack of carbs, and you're screwing up their sleep. When we're not testing these things, we have to get our diaries out and make notes about how our moods shift with certain foods, and just have a look at over a duration of a month or a couple of months. If exercise is going to be the answer to your changing your body or feeling better, then have you tackled it? It's the chicken and the egg thing again. Have you tackled it from the right angle? So my reminders are all about that, really. And I just try in a subtle way to just say, before you do CrossFit or before you do HIIT, have a think about whether the stress relief is going to work with how much stress you've been under and how knackered you are. And the best way really to find out is to get into measuring your heart rate variability. What you do is you measure your heart rate variability in the morning. For most of us, it's not really going to be too applicable because you're not doing high intensity exercise. But, if you're a long distance runner or you're doing these things, it's good to monitor your heart rate variability, because when your heart's very constant, and there's not much variability in it, you're actually showing or displaying signs of stress. Your natural heart rhythm has peaks and troughs, which is quite symbolic really to how we function. I think that with our lives, we tend to be so boom, boom, boom. And it's not giving those natural ebbs and flows to how we are.
How do you optimize your sleep patterns to increase your energy during the day? Is that a reasonable question, do you think, Nigel, as I spoke, or not?
Oh God, definitely. Follow the light and day cycles, whatever you do. Find a way to do a brain dump at the end of the day so that you're not trying to be on a screen after 8 o'clock.
And I don't even know if people know if they have poor qualities of sleep, do they?
Again, I think you've got to keep a diary, what your moods are like, because I think moods, and certainly for me, when I went through some of the health issues that I did, I would sit down on my to-do list and I had all sorts of attention difficulties and I kept blaming myself. But when you've got these issues going on, neurotransmitters are affected, your brain function can get screwed up. And I know it doesn't sound like I'm painting a particularly positive picture here, but stress as a way of doing that to us. And if you're not sleeping very well, and of course, I've touched on some subjects why you might not sleep very well, but keep a diary. I use Sleep Cycle. So I'm monitoring the wave pattern of my sleep. And again, yeah, there you go. Fitbit probably does a very similar thing.
Do you have any suggestions, Nigel, on how to enable yourself to get those habits?
I wonder if habit trackers actually disempower us. Like, for instance, my nan used to believe in doing maths. She used to do maths to keep her brain alert. She didn't want to use calculators. And it's almost like, do calculators make you not as good or capable at doing maths? So I just wondered if like habit trackers in nature are almost disempowering us, because I know I've got so many alarms on my phone. In the end, I just turn it off and ignore it. I mean, the only thing that I do that I make sure is a habit, because I have people book online with me sessions, I block out my breaks so that people can't physically book those times. So it's impossible for that work to overlap my breaks. And I know that's a really simple thing to do, but there's a timer that I use on my computer that gives me 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break. And I find that's really helpful.
Nutrition wise, it's more or less fine because I more or less know that you need to keep balanced diet and keep energy flowing throughout the day, not just eat once a day. And with exercise, it's a bit less for me because of the back condition. And it did go a bit worse about a year and a half ago. I only do stretching in the morning and Pilates once a week. And I keep finding that, oh, you can't run or you can't do that. Like on different online sources, they do say, oh, you shouldn't overload your spine kind of thing if you have slip discs.
How long do you sit down for a day?
Quite a lot. And that's another thing that I've forced myself to break out of work and do, and stand up and make a drink or do something.
Is there a way that you can bring in a form of exercise into your day just by sitting down at the desk? Like, for instance, sitting on a stability ball or standing at a desk, changing your position a little bit? I don't know if I've just caused us to go off on a tangent there, but it might be something worth you thinking about. With anything I say, I'm not saying that this is gospel and this is what you have to do. And I know that when you've got back issues and things like that, and someone says stand at a desk, it's kind of a bit like, well, that will kill my back. But the thing is the very thing that gets us in these problems is sitting down for so long. And if we would just try and break our patterns up a little bit, who knows, it might really help. You just got to be willing to sort of try it out, alter the level of the desk and your screen. And because I used to work as a web designer and I had a bad back. The preparation for sleep doesn't start as you're getting ready for bed. It starts during the day. It starts that morning by hydrating and covering those bases. I think so many of us leave sleep as an afterthought. Not only that, I think the mindset can be, when am I going to feel tired? When I am, I'll go to bed. Rather than, let's turn the lights down, let's reduce that input, maybe let's have a read and let's wind down or meditate, and sleep comes more natural.
In terms of any homework, Nigel, is there anything that you wanted people to particularly consider?
Track your sleep.
Yeah.
Have a think about what your water sources are, and if you really are hydrated or whether you're just washing your gut out, and consider being grounded when you sleep.
In terms of being grounded when you sleep, do you put those mats on the bed?
When I first looked into grounding, even though it sounds hazardous, I created my own grounding sheet out of a piece of tin foil. And I took the wire into the grounding. You have to make sure you put it where the big pin goes. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I went through the bed, like it was the best night's sleep I'd ever had. Even better than when I was in hospital and I had something to tranquilize me and go to sleep. It was the best sleep I'd ever had. Providing you're careful, you can make your own tests to see how this feels. You could make your own pad when you sit down at the computer, because EMFs off of the computer stress you out. you can make your own versions to test it out to see how you feel, and you will feel better.